Welcome to the K2 Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Kelly. Every week, I'll be sitting down with a sales executive where they'll share their stories and experiences that produce game-changing results. Let's be honest, sales can be a tough game. I'm sure at some point, we've all delivered a less than stellar demo, been ghosted by a client or two, and sometimes maybe we did more talking than listening. And that's where I can help. The stories and insights our guests share can be applied to your own business, your territory, or with your team, so you're not reinventing the wheel. Our weekly tactics and strategies help you get out of your head and start creating your own path towards game-changing results. Welcome back to the K2 Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Karen Kelly. Now, many industries in the pandemic have done really, really well, or others have done very poorly based on how they handled the pandemic. Now, there's one industry that, there's some stereotypes and there's some preconceived notions about it, even outside of the pandemic. And some words used to describe it might be, commoditized, transactional, low value. And I'm talking about the pharmaceutical industry. And I'm here today to meet with Lindsay Haubrich, who's been in pharma sales for 20 years. And she's going to share her insights about how it is consultative. We can add value, and that, it really does come about caring and bringing your true authentic self. So I can honestly say that in this conversation, she managed to change my mind, because I was a little bit of the mindset of, yeah, they got to add value pretty quickly because of the compressed time. And usually they end up just spitting out, 3 key selling messages and that's it. And, in any industry, there's going to be people that do that. But Lindsay brought her passion, her empathy, her vulnerability. And she just showed us that it's possible, that, she's got a great organization backing her. But even those who might not have the support or the brand that she does, you can still make a difference. And it really does start with being a good person, actually caring not only about the physician that you're dealing with, but also the patient downstream. And so I learned a lot, and I think she really did a great job of debunking the theory and the stereotype of pharmaceutical salespeople. So take a listen. If you know anybody who's in the industry and you feel could benefit from this, or if you're trying to get into pharma sales, this is a great educator as to what you can do, what you can expect when you're in there. And again, to kind of, you know, look outside the muddied waters and see that there is a lot of beauty, truth, and value in pharmaceutical sales. So enjoy, and thanks for listening. The pandemic has caused a lot of stress on industries, and there's one industry in particular that was already stressful or already had a little bit of a tarnished reputation before the pandemic. And so it's accelerated things. And the industry I'm talking about is the pharmaceutical industry. And those who are in it, or those who obviously have heard of it, may think, you know what, it's very price driven, it's very difficult to get to value or to add value, and it's very transactional. So I'm excited to welcome Lindsay Haubrich to the podcast and invite her to share her expertise as a pharma sales rep and kind of debunk some of these theories. So Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Karen. I'm thrilled to be here.
My pleasure. So why don't we start? I mean, I worked in healthcare for many years, and I can tell you that there was a bit of a negative stigmatism around pharma sales reps. So, what are your thoughts on that, first of all?
I mean, my immediate instinct is that it hurts my heart, obviously. I mean, so many pharmaceutical companies are providing incredible products and value to patients, never mind the healthcare practitioners that are prescribing these products. So whether it's diabetes, hypertension, cancer, how do we think a lot of these people are living day to day healthfully without a pharmaceutical rep who can provide the value and the information to the physician? A lot of people have a negative idea based on media and maybe what they have heard from a friend of a friend. And pharmaceutical sales are not what people imagine and perceive it to be. If I had any of my customers here with me today, I would hope that they would tell you the same thing, that Lindsay brings me value. Lindsay helps me treat my patients every day by bringing me materials and samples and products and science to help me make the best choice for my patient. So I wish people knew more of that side of pharmaceutical sales.
Yeah. Well, I can detect your passion there. And the fact that you did, it did hurt you shows that you care. And I think irrespective of the industry you're in sales, the number one thing is you have to care.
Absolutely, absolutely. And listen, we're not. This is it is not a doctor's sign on the dotted line for Lindsay's product. I'm consultative with my physicians. I am presenting the data and the science, and of course, yes, I have the love and the passion behind what it is that I'm promoting because I believe in it and I believe in the safety and the efficacy of my brands. And it doesn't matter what you're selling, you need to care, and you need to be able to present the data properly to whomever it is you're having that call with, and the physician's making a decision from there. I'm not asking him or her to say to me today, I need you to sign this contract and tell me that you are only prescribing my product or you're going to prescribe my product. Of course, I'm going to close them on the data that I've presented, but it's up to that physician moving forward what he or she decides to do with the evidence and the information that I and my colleagues have provided to them. So
And
we're consultative. I'm not asking for anything in return except for to try based on the data presented.
mhm. And do you think some other reps perhaps think that the transaction is done and they are going to start prescribing? That there might be I don't know, not an arrogance there, but just like, "Yeah, I got this. This is mine."
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there's part of it that you do. There's nothing better than when you have a really great call to see that sort of light go off and have the questions and have the objections thrown at you and you being able to handle them accordingly and being able to say, doctor, do you see value in this particular patient profile that we just discussed today? I want to get that commitment from them. That's my job. But you also know in your gut and based on how that call went, did you provide them with the information, the data, the value that they're really looking for? And I think if you have any arrogance about you, you're dead in the water. You have to be confident for sure, and if you've done a great job, if you've provided that value. um, but again, I don't know if I've done my job really until I find out if my product has done well in that particular area.
Mhm.
So I think the arrogance, and you're right. Do a lot of people have that arrogance? I'm sure they do. I'm sure it's an absolute detriment to them.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, Lindsay, those who are arrogant, I don't think they're asking that question at the end that you just said, where, "Doctor, do you see the value in what I provided today?" Like that, just that getting consensus there. Because I think if they're arrogant, they're coming at it from their lens, and they're actually, you're confirming and saying, "So what I shared with you, did it meet your needs?" And if it didn't, like, that's where that consultative piece comes in, and it's almost another layer. Whereas those who are arrogant and not taking it to they stay in that transactional box.
I agree. I agree 100%. And in my humble opinion, it's not going to get you very far. Pharmaceutical sales, then I believe, would probably be the wrong choice for that person, because if you don't provide value, if you do not put that patient first, if you do not care about what it is that you're speaking to and the patient that you are speaking about, um, that doctor can see right through you, or nurse, or
Mm,
educator, or whomever it is that you're speaking with, pharmacist, etc.
yeah. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think you always have to care, as we discussed, but at the end of the day, just what you said, these are people. These are patients that are sick. And I always thought, and what I've seen is people, pharma sales reps, they stop at the physician level. And it's like, even in my sales, it's like I always go that next level. It's like, who is your customer? Because I need to make sure that my message is aligned to you, but who you're targeting. So, how many of your colleagues or others in the industry take it to the patient level and really look at the impact downstream?
Mhm. So I've had the pleasure of working for a number of pharmaceutical companies and promoted well over 30 brands in my career. And I think every company definitely looks at things a little bit differently. Um, there's a difference in therapeutic areas also for sure. But I have to say, at the core, at least of every organization that I've been with, it needs to be patient focus and patient centric. I mean, I'm advocating for products for the patient. So if I can't effectively make it about that patient, I can show numbers and data and graphs all day long. But if I'm not speaking to that particular, man or woman who is sitting out there in your waiting room right now and can't make that correlation for the physician, then I haven't done my job. So I have to say that I have been really fortunate that that was ingrained in me many, many, many years ago. And because I strongly believe in it, it's been the number one part of my calls. I can't necessarily speak to the rest of the industry, but I do believe that the good reps always make it about the patients, and the good companies always make that the forefront.
Mhm. I always go back to the art and science of sales. And I think what you're saying, the science is the clinical data, but what you're sharing is the art, and that's you, that's the emotion, that's the connection, that's what Lindsay brings uniquely, and even just that connection with the patient. And actually, I know we talked about caring, but there's saying you care, and then there's genuine caring. And as you
Meaning that
said,
you care.
exactly. And if you think the physicians can't see through that, like you're very junior if that's what you think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 100%. Bringing your own authentic self. And like you said, they are people. It doesn't matter what you're advocating for or selling. If you cannot empathize with that human sitting right in front of you and making sure that you are bringing value and having a great call and a great interaction and getting to know them and finding out exactly what it is that they need, yes, of course, I've got a job to do and a product to sell. And I think I do that really successfully based on the fact that I can have that genuine, authentic conversation with the person sitting in front of me.
Mhm. So when you mention knowing their job, and this is the persona you're targeting, and really, we're not doctors, we haven't done their job. But do you think some people are perhaps intimidated because they don't have the MD behind their name, that when they show up, it might be a little bit of imposter syndrome and their true authentic self isn't actually able to
Oh,
come out?
100%. Even saying imposter syndrome, I'm sure so many people, even listening to this, we feel this all the time. I constantly have horrible dreams that, somebody's going to find out that I don't really know what I'm talking about. It's awful. It's awful. But you're right. I remember thinking back to calling on physicians, 19, 20 years ago when I started. And I was terrified. I was terrified. But I remember learning very quickly that yes, my particular customers know more about medicine than I do. Of course they do. But it's my job to know more about my particular brand. So as soon as I became comfortable in knowing that I have been trained and certified in what it is I was trying to present to them and that that was my jam, I got all the confidence in the world because that's why they want to see me, right? Lindsay's going to hopefully bring me value on patient X, product X. That's why they want to see me. They know so much about so much, but they don't know as much about my products. That's my job. So I think that's the key is we need to put that sort of burden on ourselves to make sure that we know our data, our product so well that we are providing that value.
And so for those, Lindsay, who are where you were 20 years ago and still struggling a little bit, what kind of advice would you have, or what would you say to help them get out of their head and really just be like, I'm the expert on the product. I don't know what you do, and I don't want to. I don't need to. So what kind of advice would you give them?
I think the first piece of advice that I would give is you just got to keep showing up because if you keep showing up, you get to keep practicing. And if you get to keep practicing, you're going to get better. I also think there's something to be said about being vulnerable in front of that physician in front of you and saying, listen, I'm new at this. I have some really great information, data, whatever it is to share with you today. And I'm so grateful that you've given me the time to sit down with you. But forgive my nerves, forgive the fact that, again, I'm new at this and I respect you and I respect your time. And it's because I care and I want to be able to bring value to you. So again, I think it just always comes down to you have to be you and don't pretend that you're something or someone that you're not. If you just started this job, a year ago or 2 years ago or last week, it's okay to tell the physician that because they're people too. So you just got to keep showing up and practicing and keep at it, because time and practice and interaction and being vulnerable, I think, is going to get you to wherever it is that you want to be.
I love that. I love just the vulnerability piece of it, and I think at any stage of our life, it just shows we've disarmed, and I think it's in the pharma world, it's physicians, but in other areas, it's C-suite, and it's okay to say, like, I just need a little bit of help, and the way you said is, but you're grateful for their time. There's gratitude there, and in time, you will add value, but it's a learning curve, and I think when you come at it from that lens, most people will give you their time.
I think so. I think so. I mean, who could ask you to leave or not respect the fact that you just said, "Here's what I would love to do for you.
Hmm.
Um, just allow me the privilege to prove to you that I can."
Yeah. I think it's we need to step out of our ego's way in order to do that. That's
Yes.
that's probably what's
Isn't
holding us back for most
isn't that
most
the
times.
truth?
Yeah. And I struggled with that. I can say to myself, I found it very difficult to show vulnerability and you have to. It's the only way to learn and come at it from your true self, and connection. Otherwise someone's armed and the other one's not, and it's not a fair playing ground and nothing happens.
I agree. I agree.
So, when you think about the pandemic, I mean, you pharma reps are obviously in clinics, in hospitals, in some instances, and then 2 years you're locked out. So, I would say access is new in the game. Access is probably tough to begin with, and you're trying to get you're waiting in waiting rooms. You're trying to get calls with their secretary. So, what did the pandemic do to the industry by removing that face to face?
Oh gosh. I mean, again, my first instinct is the patient, because again, the physicians were trying to sort of wrap their brains around what was this going to look like for them? How are they going to see their patients? And just by default of the fact that they weren't in the office and trying to figure out how to see the patients virtually, never mind the pharmaceutical reps. I mean, we were an afterthought, and justifiably so. We needed to be an afterthought because the patient care needed to come first. But because of sort of that, it took time for them to figure out how that was going to work. And so again, my concern went back to these patients aren't being treated properly. They're not in front of their physician. The physician can't do their job properly, and that's through no fault of anybody's but the pandemic. So for us as reps, I think my company, bless them, was so wonderful in giving us the flexibility to come in from an area of, you just do whatever you need to do to try to access, try to assist. My company provided us with virtual sample cards. They taught us how to do email to fax, because believe it or not, so many physicians still don't even use email. They still use their fax machine. So all these different ways for us to access them. And of course, those of us that have the privilege of having the email addresses and knowing our customers, it was very easy for me to be able to reach out to them to say, I just want to meet you where you're at. I can't even imagine what you're doing right now. I can't even imagine how you're feeling. But if and when you need me, and you know that I can provide you with A, B, C, and D, you let me know when we can connect so that I can provide these tools to you. Um, so I know a lot of my colleagues just picked up the phone and tried to connect with whoever it was that answered that phone to say, how is it that can we help you? How is it can we get the samples for the patients? How is it can we provide you with all these new online virtual tools that Dr. So and so really could use right now that he or she is doing all their calls virtually? So again, I think it you had to be creative. You had to think outside of the box. We had to provide value, and we had to be respectfully persistent without being pushy and obnoxious. And again, that I really believe was an art. I think some people did it really well. I think some people didn't do it well. And those who did it well succeeded.
And it's a fine balance. I think it sounds like you guys did a great job of pivoting and really meeting them where they're at, whether they're faxing, whether they're emailing. But I think most companies that I've heard about, they were leading with themselves, with, a sales element. And from you, I'm getting the sense that you're very others focused and you're coming at it from their lens that, I understand your focus is the patient. So when and how I can help you, like I'm here for you. And the fact that you had an existing relationship, there's trust there that they know that Lindsay is going to, deliver value when the time's right.
When the time's right. I think that was the key, is you could undo years of work
Mhm.
and relationship by pushing your own agenda. And I mean, that's the case, I think, for all sales reps all the time. If you go at it from sort of a narcissistic angle, you're you're dead in the water. We do have to meet them where they're at, and I think that was the key. And again, I was very fortunate to work for an organization that really empowered me to do that.
Mhm. And those who do go at it from that, that very sales focus, like why do you think that that is in your opinion?
Well, I mean, it usually is probably one of two things. Is it coming from up above? I mean, is does that particular person feel the pressure that the company's maybe not doing well, or listen, we've got a job to do. You've got to get your call metrics in. You've got to speak to this person. Um, so there's that aspect of it, but then there's also sort of the dog eat dog sort of shark mentality, where does that particular rep just see his or her business maybe declining throughout the pandemic, or even now or pre-pandemic, that they just feel that they've got to get in there and figure out what's happening. I think it's one of the two things. It's just the rep maybe just is desperate in some capacity. It also can be coming from up above. I have a lot of friends in the industry, and a lot of companies handled this pandemic very differently. And if you're a representative and you have it coming down from up above, that you've got to get your metrics or get things done, that puts a lot of pressure on the human that is working the front line. So how you as a rep sort of navigate through that is still up to you.
I would say the leadership card is probably, in my opinion, what it is. And I think, leaders model the behavior. And if they're coming at it from a me standpoint, that trickles down because they're creating the culture, right? And then the folks under them, that's what they're putting out there. So it's and those are the companies, as you mentioned. Some are doing exponentially well because of it, and not just situationally because they handled it well. And I think that comes to leadership, and leadership being vulnerable and saying, like, I don't have all the answers, but let's work together and figure this out and just show them. And then that invites inclusivity, collaboration, all the things that sales reps who are used to working together are craving.
Do you know what it also does, is that it looks at your sales reps feel, again, empowered, and they feel so worthy of working for that organization that they just want to do more and they just want to do well. So again, it's always because of the patient, but it almost, at least in my case, I can speak to many of my colleagues as well, is that it just put us into a position of, how do we do this? How can we pivot? How can we change the way that we're doing things right now? Not because it's my goal to get in front of them, but because it's just the right thing to do. And how can I figure that out? I wanted to do well for my manager, for my team, for my organization, and ultimately, most importantly, for the patient.
Hmm. I think that's great. And it sounds like you have a great leadership team there because, team empowerment is the number one thing. And when they feel they have skin in the game and they're supported and they're valued, they're going to work twice as hard for you and give you the results.
Agreed, agreed. And I can tell you, I mean, our company has done remarkably well. So clearly that flexible, non pushy, let's figure out how to make this work for our customers mentality, and the comfort that it brought us as representatives. It's worked. We're all still here. And now that we have a little bit more access now, I'll tell you, we're scratching at the bit every single day to get out there and get in front of our customers. And our customers want to see us now. I think
Hmm.
because of that sort of gentle persistence, yet understanding that we weren't pushy, and knowing where they were at. They want
Hmm.
to they want to see us now. We've earned that now, again, more than ever before.
I love that gentle persistence. And I think that's it. You said it. You've earned the right. You've showed them that for 2 years, you've shown them that you're others focused and you were respectfully waiting on the outsides, but still contributing and adding value, when need be. Cause again, they had to work creatively too, probably off hours to do what they can do to serve their patients. So the last thing they need is some pharma rep, stalking them.
Agreed. Agreed.
So, you had a great supportive company, Lindsay. And, a lot of times what I've heard is people say, well, it's you win big or you lose big and it's very transactional. And I don't really have an impact in the sale here. It's kind of situational or it's contract based. So what would you say to people that think that, or reps that are kind of that's the approach they take and saying, well, I can do the best I can, but the decision's ultimately going to be made above, or they're going to go under a buying group or something like that. What do you have to, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, again, I mean, again, it depends on what the product is, or again, what company you work for. But again, we do have outlet data that basically tells us how well we do in individual areas. So, I mean, there's a reason where the pharmaceutical companies get their numbers from, right? We know where our sales come from. So yes, I'm not asking a physician to sign a committed contract with me, but every single time I go back to see them or talk to them, I hear about the patient cases. I hear about, they tried product X on this particular patient and listen to what happened to this particular gentleman. So, I mean, I know that I'm doing my job properly. I know that I am quote unquote selling my product, although I am just an advocate. To have that attitude that, well, I'm doing, what I can. And that to me is not going to take you very far, because you are going to get your numbers, you are going to get your data, and you're quickly going to find out that that may not be the case. So of course there's barriers, and there's private versus public coverage and all of those things that are sort of intertwined into this particular topic. But I know where I've done well, and I know where I haven't done well. And if I haven't done well, I in a particular area or with a particular physician, then that's my job to figure out what is that missing link. To sort of do this, well, then you're lacking passion and you may not be in the right business, and that person's going to be found out in some capacity, right? You have to care, you have to have the passion, you got to figure out where you can fulfill that need. And if you don't, again, I think people are eventually going to see right through you and you won't be successful.
I'd say it's only a matter of time.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned leading and lagging indicators. So you kind of know after the fact if they prescribed that you've done well, and then if you didn't do it. So walk me through, I guess, how you know when you've been successful or unsuccessful, but also what's that reflective period like for you? Do you go back to the various stage, the various interaction, and say, like, what could I have done differently? Do you note take after your appointment? Like, walk us through that process a little bit.
Absolutely. So, how you know without actually physically seeing data is, I mean, again, for as much as we need to be human and have a beautiful call and a good interaction and sell the science, it would behoove me to not at the end of it say, look, where are we at here? What do you think about the things that we've talked about? For I think this comes with time as well. For as much as you can take this sort of conversational approach, you cannot be afraid to look at that physician and say, are we going to try this? Are you going to try this product? Because if there's something that's missing, then it's my job to figure out what that is, because I don't want to walk out this door without you telling me that you're going to try this product. So that's and I've had people say, no, not today, or I'm giving you business elsewhere, or your company has all these great products, so I'm going to use this other product. So that's my job still in every single call, to ask for that business. So I have to trust in that moment that that physician is telling me the truth, because the actual data won't come out for a while. As for the reflection after, my gosh, I would be lying to say after 20 years there weren't a ton of calls where after you just think, what did I do here? And what did I miss? And I missed that cue, and he threw that objection out, and I wasn't quite sure what the answer was. So, I sort of skipped over it, and that was my opportunity to, address it and move forward. And of course, you're going to stumble and make mistakes along the way still, often, hopefully not too often. But you have to sort of look deep to say, did I do that call justice? Did I answer the questions appropriately? Did I sell the concept and the patient and the data that I wanted to sell today? And again, I hate using the word sell because I'm not trying to sell a car here. I'm not trying to sell a house. I'm trying to sell science.
Mhm.
And if I've done a good job in selling the science, then I know that that physician is going to make the right choice for the right patient sitting in front of them. I have that confidence. So, but it's up to me to make sure that I get that commitment at the end.
Mhm. And I can say doing a lot of sales coaching that there's probably top 3 things that are missed, and that's definitely one of them, that call to action or just keeping, the momentum going. And, what I see is it's fear. They're afraid to either dig in to ask more questions, but they're also afraid to ask for that next step and say, "So, what I share," like getting, checking in with them, and so what I share to you, is it valuable? Is it in line with your expectations? Just like you said, where do you think this is going? Otherwise, these lines are gonna run parallel forever.
And we're not going to get anywhere. I think we don't want to hear the answer. We don't want to hear that we failed. We don't want to hear that we've missed something. We don't want to hear that we haven't done a good job in, answering a question or presenting the information that we've presented. But that, my gosh, we all know what comes out of failure. It gives us the
Mm,
opportunity to come back stronger and try again.
mhm.
So it of course it's going to affect our egos, but if I'm going to get anywhere with that person in front of me, I've got to ask the question because they're going to tell me exactly where they're at, I would hope. So it gives me the opportunity then to show up again and try again and figure out a way to get that particular physician to try whatever it is that we're speaking about.
Well, I would rather much get a no than nothing. And I think just like you said, it's iterative, right? So you get feedback and you get closer. You go back for round 2, you get closer round 3, and as you're going through, because it's not a transactional sale, but you're learning, and hopefully you're taking note at when we get to this level and you start, building some um I guess, data points in your persona. Like these guys like this. This paper really works there. So you're trying to, I imagine, create some repeatability, some predictability. Again, not everyone's the same, but I just think, like you said, failure is feedback.
Mhm. Absolutely. And listen, nobody who's ever been super successful in whatever it is that they're doing hasn't failed more times than they have succeeded. If we all just kept succeeding, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in any industry, in any business. It certainly doesn't happen in my business. If that was the case, we would have a whole heck of a lot of healthier people out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're failing and we're failing every day. So if we're not okay with a little bit of failure and take that failure as a positive and go and run with it, then that's on us. That's on us. We've got to kick the ego to the curb and, dig deep. And again, it's about that passion and caring about what you're doing to show up and be better the next time, whatever better happens to be in that particular occasion.
Yeah, I think just 1% a day incrementally and learn from your mistakes. But I think those who have never failed, like, it's luck. And a lot of times when I'll say to companies, like, "What are you contributing your success to in the pandemic?" Because either people really grew or they're out of business. They're like, "We're crushing it." And I'm like, "That's great." And where, like, how, why? I don't know, but we're crushing it.
Well,
And
if
I'm
you
just like,
don't know, then you're right. You're lucky, and luck runs out. Luck runs
it,
out, doesn't it?
well, and you can't repeat it. And I just think, like, it's as important as it is to pinpoint in your buyer's journey where things went down, it's also where it goes up so you can really hone in that and get your team, aligned to that and say, like, this is where we really got to be proactive and intentional at this stage, because when we do, we can compress the sales cycle, we can get traction, we can, get where we want to go quicker. So you've kind of opened my eyes because again, I would have been the one of thinking it is a bit transactional. So from what I'm hearing, it's very consultative. So can you just walk us through a little bit about, what stages or what activities make it consultative?
I think again, it's about bringing it back to the patient, right? We're asking the questions as to tell me who you're treating. Tell me what you're struggling with. Tell me what you are currently using. I can share with you what some of your colleagues are doing. Let me present you the data on this particular patient profile that you may be struggling with. I think again, it's just about if I just go in with sort of my three main selling points, the doctor's looking at me like, who are we talking about here? Yeah, you've got a great product, but you're not telling me who it's for. You're not telling me why it's better than product X. I don't know how to prescribe it. That's a whole other thing, right? Can you imagine how many different kinds of medicine that these physicians need to prescribe? I mean, something as simple as how do you prescribe it? They need us for that. They're not going to Google and pull out their phone. And I mean, there's so much value that we as reps can provide that physician. But if I'm not having a genuine conversation about a patient with the person sitting in front of me and talking about what do you do in this situation and what do you currently prescribe in this particular group, because it might not be my product, but here's why, if applicable, my product is better. So let's talk about that. And again, it's if I go in with some sort of didactic, I just want to spew out why you need to use my product. I mean, that's not going to get me anywhere. But again, I think that might come in a lot of cases from up above. You got to get the
Mhm.
information out there. The doctor's got to hear it. That's great. The doctor's going to hear it, but he or she's not going to do anything with it if they don't know where or why. So I really do think a good rep has that sort of consultative discussion. You have to, because if you can't plant the seeds and give them the direction as to the who and the why and the benefits of doing so, all you're doing is talking, really, and not making any
Mhm.
sense to the person in front of you. You're not getting any commitment. You're not, showing them how and when to use and why and the science to support that. That's my job. So if I don't do that in the right way, my numbers aren't going to move. My product's not going to move.
And I'm wondering, Lindsay, because, timing, like time is a currency we trade, and you think the amount of time you have in a physician. So it's almost like pressure under time that you got to go there and you got to hit the value button pretty quick. But I think reps who aren't as experienced as you may hit the panic button and go, here's my top three, like an empty suit. We call them empty suits. And they're just like, here's my top three selling message. And this spew everything. So, what suggestion would you have to go, yes, time is compressed, but, like, I still have to lead with curiosity. Still have to demonstrate business acumen, that I understand enough of your business, but not just what you do, but the whole clinic or the organization, to know where you fit into that, as well as the patient. Like, there's upstream and downstream. So, like, what do you say to these people who have to factor all that in a very short period of time?
Very short period of time. So again, it all depends on, are you trying to information gather in that particular short call and hoping for another longer one down the road? Do you have a lunch or a more significant appointment booked with that person down the road? If not, you're right. Then you need to be prepared if you are just dropping in or have a very short call with somebody, to basically go in and have something to say, because you know that you've met with this person a number of times. I just want to remind you, in this particular patient profile, we've had the discussion before, refer back to previous conversations, remember this data. Can I have your commitment that when this next patient shows up, you need to consider this? And or can I have some more time with you, in a couple of weeks or a month, where we can really dive into this and really talk about it, and make sure that even in that particular short call, you are providing, even if it's just a little bit of value. Because if you're providing a little bit of value in that very short period of time, there's a pretty good chance that he or she will allow you to come back at a different time. So you're right. We do feel pressure in those fast, quick moments. But we also, I don't think, should make fools of ourselves to be that empty suit, as you said, because you do want to provide value. So maybe that really quick call is just a really quick question. Doctor, I've got a lunch with you coming up in 3 weeks. Um, is there one thing that you want me to bring? Is there one thing that you really want me to be prepared for? Is there one study that you want to speak to? If I can't bring you a ton of value today in between patients, I want to make sure that I can do that for you in 3 weeks when we have a little bit more time together, over our chicken sandwich. So we just have to be able to, I think, bring value in any capacity. And maybe we won't every single time. Um, but we are so much more than the person that just spits out information at that 30-second counter call. Yeah, we want to maybe have one really powerful statement and leave some, documents behind for the physician to take a peek at. Um, but I would challenge everybody not to be that empty suit and to maybe take that time in asking a really thoughtful question, because that thoughtful question may lead you to a little bit more time, even with the physician at that moment. So let's be smart and strategic with the moments that we have with our customers, and not have it be, again, about Lindsay, the rep.
Mhm. And I love all that. And anyone that is or started this podcast thinking the pharmaceutical and the kind of the negative connotations, I would say the pendulum is shifting the other way. You're doing a great job of educating us on the consultative nature, the caring, the empathy, and the ability. If people think, well, it's above me, and it's not. It's not. So you've shared so many instances and activities and examples of how the individual contributor can make a huge, significant difference. And like, I love what you just said about even if it's a short visit, I can offer a little bit of value. But I think that's a differentiator or a pattern interrupt, because the physician's probably thinking, oh God, here we go again. And they're stopped in their tracks as they're like, "Hang on a minute. She she's setting expectations for the next meeting 3 minutes. She made it about me. She's trying to customize something and tailor it to my needs. Whoa, hold on a minute here."
Yeah, let's be thoughtful, right? We're not just thoughtful with our friends and our spouses and our children. We need to always be thoughtful. I think that's why I always love to say to new reps, just be a human, be the same person that you are at work with these, super beings that, in my industry, we call our physicians and our educators and our nurses and pharmacists, that they're just people too. And as long as you are empathetic and thoughtful and remember what their needs are, you are going to differentiate yourself. You aren't going to be that pharmaceutical robot, because the pharmaceutical robots break. Whereas if you're different and, challenge yourself to bring that value in, to, be unique in whatever capacity that is for you, you are going to bring value, and they aren't going to run away from you when they see you.
Mhm.
I've had people run away from me. Of course I have. And hopefully a little less today, right?
They just walk quickly now. I'm joking. They do not. They run towards you, I imagine. I just think when you can put a face on the C-suite or these physicians and be like, "You know what? That's Johnny's dad, or that's Sarah's mom. She's an ER physician at, Mount Sinai." All of a sudden you're like, "Oh yeah, I saw her making Kraft dinner for dinner. She's real, and she, eats processed food too."
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
So, Lindsay, for the younger reps or the less experienced reps, not necessarily younger, coming in, and they might have, been thinking, "Oh, it's a tough industry to get in." Like, what kind of suggestions would you have for them to perhaps prepare to get into the industry and to really, try to land that job, because it's pretty difficult industry to get into. So, do you have 2 or 3 tips that you could suggest for them to prepare to get into the role?
I do. I do. I think the first thing, I talked about being respectfully, persistent with our customers. I think somebody wanting to get in the industry, you also need to be respectfully persistent. You need to reach out to anybody that you may know in the industry. Do you have a recruiter that you can work with? Have you gone ahead and found out what a day in the life actually looks like? Um, Ask your physician if they have any great reps that they can maybe put you in touch with. um, you just got to dig deep and ask the questions and be resourceful. And if and when you get to speak to a rep, or go to a pharmacist even, to say, is there anybody that maybe you could put me in touch with? Do your CCPE course. That's sort of the basic fundamental pharmaceutical course that we all need to take in order to actively do this role in Canada. So all the things, again, if you want to be in sales, you need to be resourceful and you need to network. So you have to prove that you can do that. So ask the questions, talk to people, spend a day on the road with a rep when the time comes and when it's appropriate. It's not necessarily appropriate right now in the times that we're in, but I've often spent time on the phone or in a coffee shop speaking to people who want to get in the industry, always remembering that somebody did that for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then if you've got somebody great in front of you, I'm the first person to refer them to my organization if it's somebody that I'm willing to put my name behind. So be resourceful and be respectfully persistent, would be number one. Again, number two, I've said it a number of times, just be you, just be a human, be empathetic, ask the right questions, be vulnerable, um, show that you care. People are immediately attracted to honest, genuine people who listen and who ask the right questions and who really are driven to do good, whatever good happens to be. So I definitely would suggest that. And last, I said it earlier, just keep showing up. If you're, a new rep already with the job or somebody who wants to get into the industry, a lot of people go through a lot of interviews and don't get the jobs. And, the fit's not right, and find out what the feedback is, take that hopefully criticism positively and turn it into a positive, and don't don't stop. But I think most importantly, you need to care about humans and you need to be passionate about what it is that you are promoting, because if you don't feel that way, it's going to show. And I just don't think it's going to fare you well. So you have to care, you have to be passionate about what you're promoting, and you have to let that passion show through every single day.
Mm-hmm. I think those are three great, I'm not gonna say easily achievable because that it sounds like a lot of those are innate. The type of person you're attracting. I mean, there is some training, but if you don't, I can't train you how to care. I
You
can't. If
can't.
you're not
Or to be
empathetic,
passionate,
yeah, I
or to
can't.
be assertive,
No.
all the things that I think you have to take, to yourself and do your personal development. And, I can't say that I knew and believed all these things 10, 15 years ago. Um, but if I can share a little bit of my wisdom
Mm-hmm.
with maybe a younger folk, that's probably what I would say. If I wish I could have learned all of this many, many, many years ago.
But it's a journey, and I think that's what makes you who you are, and that's what allows you to give back now is because you learned it over your career, and you're human as well. And what you shared about that process for me, like that's sales. So if it's your first time into a pharma job, or if it's your first sales job, you're getting an idea of what sales is. That persistence, that a day in the life, and following up and networking and asking good questions. I mean, that's exactly what sales is. So as you're going through the process to get a job, if you don't like it, you might realize I'm barking up the wrong tree because this is what I'm be careful what you wish for. This is what I'm trying to get into.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that's what you're doing. It's what you're doing every day, right? Constant flexibility and innovation and asking questions and digging around for the right answers. So you're right. If you aren't into that process, this might not be.
And sales isn't for everybody. It really isn't. I think, the resiliency in it, and it really is the only job that you probably get, 50 no's before you get a yes.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. Well, Lindsay, you've managed to change not only my mind, I'm sure all our listeners' minds as well. So thank you so much for just really exuding the passion, the caring, and the humanized connection that is required to be successful in pharma sales. Because you embody it, and I can see why you've been doing it for so long and been so successful. And I would say your company is very lucky to have someone like you because you're a role model for those around you, whether they're just starting or not.
Thank you so much. Very kind words that mean Very, very much. Thank you for having me today, Karen. I appreciate it. I'm so proud of you for what you've done here.
Thank you so much. So, Lindsay, if there's anyone here that would like to learn a little bit more, or maybe just as you said, they are, embarking on this and have a few questions, where could they find you?
They certainly can find me on LinkedIn. If my husband saw my name right now at the top of the screen, he probably would have a heart attack because you've got my maiden name. But if you say Lindsay Haubrich, my name is Lindsay Haubrich, and they certainly can find me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to chat anytime.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lindsay Haubrich, for just a little check for your husband there. I'll have
Yeah.
to I'll have to buy him a bottle of wine to make
Oh
up for
gosh,
it.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. They won't find Kala Hall on LinkedIn, I don't think. I think it's
Okay.
Lindsay Haubrich.
Okay, we'll make sure that's in the show notes. Well, thank you again, Lindsay, and thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy this show and you know someone who's trying to get in the industry or who would benefit from this show, please like and share it. And again, thanks for listening.